Hey guys, this is Phil coming back here with another video. Today, I'm excited, I'm pumped up. Hopefully everyone's doing well, practicing self-care, getting the job done, pushing past self-doubt, and living their best life, and not letting one thought, one person, one situation take them outside of what they know what they need to do. And I know that is true for 45 people, because that's how many people walked in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest, got the job done since my last video, and they are as follows: Latanya C, Roseanne T, Aberline K, Taylor W, Samantha A, Tiffany M, Rebecca R, Kalila A, Melissa C, McCree L, Shani B, Stacy S, Emily T, Jennifer D, Josh R, Alexis M, Jamie T, Katie O, Thomas F, Madison G, Beverly K, Lauren F, Meredith L, Alicia B, Jennifer M, Ben C, Moses A, Jesse T, Alex G, Jessica R, Margaret B, Karen M, Sam S, Karen C, Asha I, Marissa S, Kendra C, Patrick G, Lisa V, Vivian B, Iris S, Lauren P.S., Chrissy G, Dorinda G, and Katie G. So excited because a lot of these people on this list were like, Phil, I don't know if I can do this. A lot of programs or people were telling me I should reschedule. They were telling me that I didn't have what it took to walk into the exam and get the job done. I'm not even really sure if I know enough. I don't have everything memorized. I'm not really sure if I can walk in after failing before. But pushing past that, getting past all of those things, and focusing on what you particularly need to do is 100% important, because the only thing that can help you pass the exam is yourself, your process, and what you believe you can do. Of course, it takes a lot of techniques and strategies, but if you don't believe that you can do something, you're not 100% going to be able to do it. And it always blows my mind how many people rep and rock with me. And if you pass your exam and you want to let me know, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And if you're like, Phil, I want to rep and rock with you as well, I'm not really sure what I can do, the easiest way to do that are my Sunday study groups and my one-day course. So the easiest way to connect with me are the one-day courses and the Sunday study groups. The one-day course is one time per month. Sunday sessions are every single Sunday. And the next ones that are coming up are 411 DSM-5 adults. We're going to be going over the personality disorders, the schizophrenia spectrum, the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorder. We're going to be going over the medications. And then at the end of each of these sessions, we're going to be going over practice questions to not just have you memorize anything, but be able to recognize and apply it to actual questions to see, do you actually understand the information, or are you memorizing it? And then when you walk into the exam, you don't totally understand what you're looking at. 418 acronym and practice questions. So we're going to be going over each level of the acronym, what it could look like, and then comparing it to practice questions. And a lot of times when people come into the acronym and practice question session, or the practice question session, or the one-day course that has questions in it as well, they are always like, this is going to be easy. It's just going to be a way that I can test to see if I'm doing everything right. But the way that I write these questions are difficult, and they're built to push you to the next level. And a lot of times when people come into these sessions, they get a ton wrong. They start panicking. They're like, what the heck? But my philosophy is I would rather give you difficult questions and push you and mold you into the person that needs to be able to walk in the exam to kill it. So that way you can walk in the exam and kill it rather than get killed in practice. I'd rather have you get killed in practice to kill during the exam than to have you have easy questions, feel good, and want to be like, yay, this is great, and then walk in the exam and get murdered. So I'd rather push you and mold you into difficult questions than to give you easy questions and make you feel good. 425, Maslow's Stages of Grief and Conditionings. 52, Research, Program Development, and Program Evaluation. 59, Community Interventions. 516, practice questions. And if you're like, Phil, are these practice questions going to be the same as the 418 acronym and practice questions in the one-day course that you're doing this Saturday? They will be different questions, so don't worry about that. I don't really rinse and repeat them. So if you've been in a practice question session before, these are going to be 100% new questions, so it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, this isn't going to be as helpful. They're still going to be helpful. And as I said before, these questions are built difficult, so that way it puts you through a difficult situation. So that way, when you walk into the exam, it's a lot easier. You feel more calm and comfortable, and you know what twists and spins can happen. So that way, if it does happen during the exam, you don't panic or you don't fall down a trap and then ultimately fail the exam. And then 5.23 meds and DSM-5. So it's going to be going over all the medications and different disorders that could be associated with them, and then going through different practice questions. And if you're like, Phil, I'm not able to attend Sunday sessions from 7 p.m. Eastern time until whenever they kick us out, they can't really kick us out. And I don't really give a guideline how long the session is because it tends to go longer than I say it is going to be. But if you're like, well, what's a gauge time? Like 9 or 10 p.m. Eastern time, but some of them end at 11 p.m. Eastern time and sometimes midnight Eastern time because I want to give back as much as I possibly can. But if you're not able to attend the session live, then you can still purchase attendance and receive the recording to review at your own leisure. And if you want any information about the Sunday study groups, then send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link in the description down below. It'll send you to my calendar. And like I said, if you're not able to attend the session live, you can still sign up for the session and receive the recording on the Monday morning after the session. And I do still offer individual tutoring. My schedule just tends to be pretty thick. So if your exam is coming up and you want to get a session, make sure that you plan ahead because my sessions schedule tends to book out 4 to 5 weeks in advance. And I hate turning people away. But if you're like, I want to roll the dice, and if you get a cancellation, I want to get it put on the tutoring waiting list, then send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And if you want to schedule a session with me and it's more in the future, you can send me an email or click the link down below in the description. It'll send you to my calendar. And for those that are wondering, yes, the one-day course is still on for this Saturday, and it is going to be an amazing event. And if you're like, what the heck is a one-day course? The one-day course is the most comprehensive, chock full of information, packed full of goodness, and the most amount of time that you get with me and the most amount of questions that you get from any of the sessions that I do. It's going to be this Saturday, 4/10, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time until whenever the heck they kick us out. And I don't really, again, provide a parameter around that because the session goes until it ends. So the last one-day course went until midnight, and it was pretty wild, but I want to make sure that everyone gets their questions answered and everything like that. And if you're like, what the heck is the one-day course? The one-day course is the most amount of information that I can provide. It's going to be going over the tips I find most helpful for people to walk in the exam, kick it directly in the chest, and get the job done and pass their exam. It also provides the common reasons why people do not pass their exams or why they fail their exams and different pitfalls and different like traps that they fall down. It breaks down multiple topics: subpoena versus court order, supervision versus referral. It goes over the personality disorders, it goes over medications, it goes over community organizing, it goes over the acronym, it goes over the 5-step process that I recommend people to utilize to walk in the exam and break down each question, as well as it goes over 25 practice questions. And these questions tend to be the most difficult thing that I can muster up because, as I stated before, I'd rather put you through difficult questions and difficult situations outside of the exam, so that way when you walk into the exam, it's more comfortable for you and you actually have a plan of action rather than having different questions that you try to template and throw at the exam to make yourself feel good. And if you're not able to attend the session the entire time, then it is possible to just get the recording. So it is a long event, and if you're like, I still plan to attend live, do I still get the recording? 100% yes. So just like with every session that I do, you can attend the session live, you can get the recording, but if you're not able to attend live, you can just get the recording. And if you want any information about that, then send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And for those that do not know, Audible has continued to sponsor both my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. It's the easiest way to support me, and it costs you absolutely nothing. And if you're like, all right, but I actually want to use Audible, Audible is an easy way to get information on the go and to get knowledge, so that way you can continue to progress and improve yourself to be the best possible version of yourself. So if you're busy just like me and you still want to continue progressing and doing everything that you possibly can, Audible is an easy way to help do that. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. That is how you help me out. And if you're like, Phil, I'm not really sure what book I should get with the 30-day free trial, there are a couple that I would recommend. The Alchemist, The Power of Habit, The Archer, and Outliers. Each of them have lessons and things that can help you progress professionally and personally, and a mixture of both of those. And why I enjoy is because I'm an audio learner. So if that's you, then Audible is an easy way to do that. Again, if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. All the information will be in the description down below as well. And if you've been enjoying everything that I've been producing, the easiest way to help me out as well is give this video a thumbs up. So down next to the title, just hit the like button. It helps other social workers find my videos as well. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification after you hit the subscribe button. It's the easiest way to stay up to date to everything that I have going on. And do me a favor, comment something down below positive, because you don't understand how many people read the comments. And if you're going through a rough time and let positive verbs help you, then do the same and comment something kind, or that you passed your exam or anything. I check them out. It helps me out as well. And if you haven't already, go to my Facebook page at Fill in the Gaps, and that's how you stay up to date with all the things that I have done. So just in case the subscribe button wants to play games or it doesn't give you all the information, that's the easiest way to do as well. As well as, if you didn't know, I have a podcast. It's at Fill in the Gaps on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. And I'm planning to upload more onto that after life kind of slows down a little bit, because I have a lot of things going on in my situation that have been unexpected. And from the bottom of my heart, you guys don't understand how much I appreciate your guys' support, for you guys repping and rocking with me, and you just sharing my name and everything, and a little bit of things that have kept me going through all the challenges and everything that I've been going through, like personally and as well as professionally, and just kind of wrap it all together, is it may not be natural to be comfortable in the situations that we're always put in, but it may be necessary in the most effective thing that is needed in order for us to be the best possible version of ourselves, or to get prepared to be put into different situations. So I've always said it as, in order to have experience, you must have experienced something. But even if you haven't experienced something, if you're going through an uncomfortable situation, or if it doesn't feel natural to you right now, it may be the situation that's going to help you get to the next level. Whether that's, man, I'm trying to break down questions and it doesn't feel comfortable for me, I'm getting more questions wrong. Maybe that's a relationship. Maybe that's an opportunity or situation that you're having in your life that you're like, man, I don't feel comfortable around this. I'm not sure I'm doing the right things. I'm making mistakes. I'm messing up. It's just sitting yourself down and saying, I do not have control right now. That's 100% okay, but I'm not going to lose my faith in the situation or who I am or what I need to do, because this may be the most effective, necessary, in all of those different things to help build me up to be a better version of myself, to support the people around me, and to get the job done. And for those that know, I am a huge proponent of not just doing things for me, but to how can I help other people progress, stay positive, and stay motivated. So that's where it may not be the easiest or most natural or effective thing from your lens, but it may be the most necessary and natural thing in the future. So you have to go through what you're going through right now in order to get to the other side. So if you're in a tough situation, or if you think you're going to give up, or if people around you are telling you, man, you should reschedule, or I don't even know if you should continue doing this, this isn't an opportunity for you, you have to stand up. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to set that boundary. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep going. You have to keep your word. You have to keep everything that you think is necessary with and for your situation. So don't let one thought, one person, one situation take you outside of what you know to be true. And I'm a huge supporter of that. And if you need anything from me in any way, shape, or form, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. Like I said, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you, whether it's you just repping with the videos, if you're in the Sunday study groups, if you're in the one-day course, if you're in the individual tutoring, or if you're just simply telling people about me in general. It blows me away how many people are like, hey, this person told me about you based on X, Y, or Z, or hey, I know you without even actually knowing you. And it's like, whoa, what in the heck is going on, or hey, this video got me through this, or hey, had zero knowledge on what this looked like, and it just really changed my life. Because you guys don't know it or not, every single one of you guys that watch these videos, or you just even rep and rock with me from a distance, you guys have changed me, and it means the world to me. And I hope everybody is building themselves up, doing everything that you need to do in order to become the best possible version of yourself, to walk into the exam, kick it directly in the chest, or walk into an opportunity, kick that directly in the chest. Because again, it may not be the most natural or positive thing that you think is there, but it may be the most effective and situational thing that you need to be in order to change your entire situation. And if you need anything, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And the rest of this video is going to be where I talk with people struggling to pass their exams. I give tips to people that are getting ready to take their exams relatively soon. And I have somebody come back, share their experience, because it always blows me away, because I can always share positivity and tips and all of those things. But it's amazing to hear from somebody that walks into the exam, tears it up, and gets the jobs done. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Take care of your guys' self. Be safe. Sit back. Relax. Enjoy the rest of this video, guys. And I'll see you in the next one. And peace out, guys. In Massachusetts, there are 2 exams you have to take. One, you can take right after graduation, which is likely the master's exam. The other, you aren't allowed to take it until after 2 years later, so likely the clinical exam. So I felt relatively prepared for my initial license exam. But this one is way more stressful because I'm 4 years out of school. I feel like my work in child protection has undone some of my clinical skills because that work is so different than more traditional clinical work. Any advice for someone that far out? I'm taking my exam Friday.
Hey everyone. Phil, thanks so much for your time. Yeah, I wrote a lot, so I summed it up. In Massachusetts, it's just a little bit different than in most of the other states, it seems, where there's a licensed clinical social worker, which I already took. And then there's a licensed independent clinical social worker. And so all of my cohort, because I went to grad school out of state, they're already independently licensed because we require a lot more time before you can be independently licensed in Massachusetts, which is kind of a pain. And unfortunately, the state had decided that working for DCF might not be a qualification for being a clinical social worker for hours. And so they froze all applications for 18 months without giving us any information. And then after 18 months, they cleared it that we were allowed to take it in March, and then COVID. So they finally just opened it up again in May. So I was actually qualified to take this exam about 21 months ago. And so I've just been waiting, which makes me feel like I'm getting further and further away from the knowledge that I gained during grad school and when I was studying for my first exam. Now I'm kind of reading these things. I'm sitting down to take practice tests. And even though I feel like I know the information, I'm really bombing a lot of the practice tests, which feels awful. And like I said, I just feel like a lot of the work in child protection focuses so much on specific things and not on the clinical work. It's a lot more case management and referral based. And so I just feel like the time that I've spent in the professional field has actually not prepared me for this exam, which is not a great feeling. I just discovered you 2 days ago, so I figured I'd jump in on this and see if that was helpful. I wish I could be part of the group next Sunday, but I take the exam Friday, so this is where I'm at.
Okay, and my biggest recommendation is to let go of the fact that you feel your job didn't prepare you for this exam, because at the end of the day, what is the basis of working with the client? Like, what is the goal of working with the client?
To support them and help them feel safe and successful.
So what do you think you need to do when you're reading the questions?
I mean, definitely get rid of the ones that aren't going to go in that direction. But yeah, I feel like, the safety and child protection isn't necessarily the support and, clinical work that you do in one-on-one. I guess that's kind of where I'm struggling. Obviously safety is important, but I actually did a couple of practice tests and clicked on a couple of them that I thought safety was the best answer. And that actually wasn't what I should have been doing, which was kind of backwards to me.
Okay, and that's where you have to peel back the question, because even though the client is going to feel safe and we're kind of meeting them where they're at, we need to understand where they're currently at. So in the child protection field, they've already been referred and safety is a concern right at the onset. Like when you're meeting them, you're looking and saying, yep, there is a safety concern or suspicion of a safety concern. So when you're looking at the exam, you always want to understand which of these is meeting the client where they're at or where they would like to go. So for example, if a client comes in, they say they want to work on their depressive symptoms, and then they say that they have been isolating and may leave the house for multiple days in a row and leave their kids there, where would we start with them?
You know, and of course I jump right back into child protection. I'd look at what are their informal support systems look like to try to eliminate that risk that they're putting in place. So I think that would be kind of where my work has told me to go.
So you're right on the path. You would simply go a little further and not go with their supports, but simply say, what does your depression look like? What are you getting out leaving the house? So a lot of people would say, Phil, you need to call Child Protective Services immediately. They're neglecting their kids. And it's like, but they're not neglecting them at this given moment that we know of. So we need to start where the client's at, assess that depression and see maybe they do have suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. And then you still have to paint it with a safety situation. So kind of pushing it a little further past the safety in the supports level is you need to meet the client where they're at in their situation. So you're on the right track. So that's what I mean. Give yourself more credit than you're giving yourself, because the objective of Child Protective Services and giving them resources and stuff is what goal in mind?
Safety. I mean, safety and support for sure.
Yeah, improving their situation. So if you get a question or two wrong, don't look at it as a negative. Look at it as more of a way of learning and saying, what made me jump more to the safety in this situation? Or what didn't cause me to jump to the safety? And going from there. So that's where a lot of times practice questions can create less of confidence in people. And the objective of a practice question is to make you feel more comfortable or expose you to the process. And a lot of times people forget that and they try to go for the result, which is whether it's right or wrong.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So walking into your exam, when you feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, reset yourself and say, I can't change anything up to this point. The answer's on the page and I need to connect my answer back to the question. From there, just building yourself up and not overwhelming yourself, because as people get closer to taking their test, they often wail on the panic button and say, I'm feeling insecure about all of these things. And it's like, breathe. You've got exposed to those situations, or those situations may not be important for you. So staying in your lane and not breaking the machine before you actually get to turn it on.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. And just let me know how it goes.
Will do. Thanks.
All right. How thoroughly do you think we need to review research methods, particularly validity and reliability? The various validity testing methods are confusing. So how in depth do you need to know them? I wouldn't say you need to like move in with them, meaning you don't have to directly know everything about them, but just being in the neighborhood and examining what they mean. So most times people get the validity considerations off. So there are a couple different validity measures that we're looking at. We're looking at internal, external, predictive, and concurrent. So if you utilize the words that are specifying what the validity is looking at, it'll help guide you a little more. So internal validity, if you look at internal, it means inside. So I'm looking at, does my experiment or program accomplish the goal that it set out to do? So if it's internally valid, I'm accomplishing my goal and I'm seeing the positive results that I want to see. External validity, external means outside. So we're trying to measure, is our program or research method valid when utilized outside of our controlled environment or agency in any way. So internal, inside of our controlled environment or agency. External, it's outside of our controlled environment and agency. Predictive, key emphasis on predict. So we try to predict the results that we want to see with and for our program or research method, etc. So if I say, when people break down the question and compare their answer back to the question to make sure it connects while on the exam, they have a higher likelihood of passing. And I'm able to quantify that and provide a questionnaire that on the survey that you guys take before you submit your exam results, and that I took and was so begrudgingly when I saw it. Did you compare your answer back to the question when doing it? And they would have a yes or no. And if a lot of people said yes, I would have predictive validity. But if they said no, I did not predict the results that I was going to see, so I would not have predictive validity. And then concurrent, key emphasis on current. Picture a current in the water. If things are flowing with the current, everything is going great. So if my results or my program or research method is going with the flow of what everyone else is doing, and we're seeing similar results to what everyone else is doing, then we are going to be having concurrent validity. However, when you're going against the current, it is very rough. So if my program or my research method is going against the current methods out there, I'm going to lack concurrent validity. So those are just easy ways to break down the validity. And when you're studying different concepts and things, just think of clever ways and easy ways to conceptualize. Again, I didn't say memorize, conceptualize, because when you can conceptualize something, you can apply it, which when you apply the information to the questions, you're going to have more comfortability, or you'll just remember easy ways that you had been practicing to do it. How long do you recommend studying for prior to taking the test? So I would say it all depends on your situation. So my recommended length of time is going to be what length of time you would feel comfortable walking into the exam. As I stated, my exam process was 2 weeks long. Most people would hear that they only get 2 weeks to study and they might stroke out on the ground and say, that is impossible. I can't do this. And it's like, well, what length of time would feel comfortable for you? And some people might be like, well, I'm going to do 3 months because that sounds very good to me. And it's like, okay, well then go out and do it and execute. Other people may say, I need 6 months to be able to study for this. And it's like, okay, well, go out and do that. And then if people are feeling like restless in that 6-month period, how much longer do you need? And can we cut off some of that 6 months? So there's no one way thing to be able to do the exam prep. And I feel like that's where a lot of times us as social workers kind of fall short, is we always look and hear other people's situations and try to apply it to our own, and don't actually assess and address our own needs to make sure it's tailored to our lifestyle, our current setup, and what we need to be looking at the time. So similar to the breakdown of the length of time, what is the length of time of days that you'd be willing to study? Because when you try to commit to something for 6 months, you may not have been able to commit to anything in your life for 6 months. So don't think that you can commit to something new, such as studying for 6 months. Be realistic with yourself and say, what is the length of time that I would like to see myself be able to do something? So the average length of time that I've seen people study is anywhere from 30 days to 6 months. I say anything longer than 6 months, if you're intensely and heavily studying every single day for multiple hours, you are likely going to burn out, if not gain any additional benefit after that 6-month period. That does not mean that if you're hearing this, Phil said if it's longer than 6 months, I'm in trouble. I didn't say that. I said if you're intensely putting in multiple hours for longer than that, and that may be self-doubt, anxiety, etc. And that's where you have to address and assess that, because if somebody's wanting to reschedule their exam based on an anxiety, that's kind of an issue, because anxiety is putting in false situations into your mind that may not even exist or happen. So if you were to push past that and actually believe in yourself that you can achieve, you'd be farther off in the process than if you were to submit and keep rescheduling over and over and over and over. And if you've been rescheduling over and over and over, outside of COVID at least, and over and over and over, you need to sit yourself down and say, when am I going to stop running from something that is not that scary? And I say it's not that scary because there's two results. Either you pass or fail. It's not either I die or I don't die, because as long as you're able to still have focus on the situation, you're going to be better off than if you never face it and know what the experience or process looks like. So oftentimes people will say, well, I don't want to fail, so I'll pass it on the first time, but I keep pushing myself off. And every time that you try to reschedule the exam, you are telling yourself, I'm not enough and I would have failed. And if you keep doing that, it's going to become a habit. So you're going to consistently give up on yourself prior to things happening. And you're going to apply that to more areas of your life than the exam. So if somebody comes to you and is like, hey, there's this cool opportunity we think you'd be good for, and you don't think you can handle it, you may commit to it, give up on that person, and then your image is forever degraded and never look the same. It's a tainted piece of information when you are not built to run away from things. You're built to face and survive and advance at that moment. So you need to look at yourself and say, what do I need to feel comfortable? And if you're feeling uncomfortable, some moments of discomfort are actually beneficial because it's meaning you're growing and pushing yourself further than you've ever gone. And when you do that over and over and over and over, when you're put into a situation that tries you, you look it in the face and say, I've been through worse. So I'm about to exceed further than this, and I'm about to advance and do things that no one has ever done or ever touched in this world. And a good example of this is the person you're listening to talking to right now. Who would have ever thought when I started making YouTube videos that we would have 150 people listening in a free study group at any point in time? No one would have thought about that. No one around me would have been like, yeah, you making these videos and providing motivation and encouragement is going to take off. You tell people your dreams and goals, they're often going to tell you things that you don't even think are possible, or they'll fuel into, man, you shouldn't do it. No one's ever done this before. Man, people failed in this testing site, so you should go to the testing site that's 3 years away from you. No, don't let someone else tell you what your situation should look like. You need to build yourself up, get yourself into the right mindset, and pick the length of time that you're willing to commit to and stop running away from the opportunity, because the only thing that's going to help you seize your dreams and goals is seizing the opportunities when they come. How do you remember diagnosis in DSM? So this is a tricky question, but I get it quite a bit of what does it look like for me to be able to do this and understand the diagnostic criteria, as well as medications. Medications are often clumped into this as well. So my biggest recommendation when it comes to DSM and diagnosing is to not memorize every single intricate detail about the diagnosis or the DSM criteria, but how do you differentiate it from the other diagnoses that are similar to it, as well as the different categories of diagnosis? So the DSM is very well laid out in categorical way. So for example, you're going to have your depressive disorders, and there are only two depressive disorders you often see: major depressive disorder and persistent depressive disorder. And when we look at those, the number 2 is very, very prevalent and relevant in that, because the diagnostic time of those is either 2 weeks or 2 years. So with them being only 2 diagnoses, the number 2, 2 weeks or 2 years, we have a way to remember those very, very easily. So from there, you go to the next category, which is anxiety disorders, and then you understand what's the difference between all of the anxiety disorders is the specifier within the name. So for example, generalized anxiety disorder, you're going to be anxious in general, and the length of time is going to be 6 months or longer. And then we have our social anxiety disorder, key emphasis on social. So whenever the person is in a social situation, they're going to have anxiety in some way, shape, or form. So in the length of time for that is also 6 months or longer. Again, if you notice, I'm not going through each diagnostic criteria and the numbers required, because the questions aren't going to ask you, this person has 3 of these diagnostic criteria, this is the length of time, and this is what the diagnostic possibilities could be. No, it's going to say this person's going through this, and this. What is the most likely diagnosis, or what's the best diagnosis that describes this? So again, I'm a huge proponent of not memorizing things, but being able to recognize and apply what you know to the question. So if we want to do another one, separation anxiety disorder, that person becomes anxious when they are separated from someone significant within their life, etc. And then you can move on to the next category, schizophrenia spectrum. So you have brief psychotic disorder, you have schizophrenia form, and then you have schizophrenia. So each one is very, very similar to one another, but the length of time is different. So since it's a spectrum, brief, key emphasis on brief, within brief psychotic disorder, it's a brief amount of time, so 30 days or less. And then you have schizophrenia, which is 6 months or longer. And then you have the one in the middle, schizophrenia form. You look at it closely, you can see pre, because this is the pre form of schizophrenia. So if it's not brief, 30 days or less, and it's not 6 months or longer, it falls in between them. So it's going to be more than 30 days, but less than 6 months. So that's where you have to kind of bring yourself into it and not look at it as a monstrous book and 100 million possibilities. But how can I differentiate these if I were to recognize them? Because oftentimes the question is going to give you what you need to know. And then the answer choices, you just have to say, it doesn't sound like this, doesn't sound like that, and doesn't sound like this. So this must be the best answer in the situation. So that's where, when it comes down to the DSM and diagnosing, don't overwhelm yourself. Make it a manageable process of, as long as I know the difference between these, I don't have to overwhelm myself, because a lot of times people are going to be looking 1 million times over it, and then they're just going to be overwhelming themselves because they're like, Phil, I can't memorize every single criteria within this diagnosis. And it's like, you don't need to, because the exam isn't requesting that of you. And then when it comes down to medications, I would just clump the category of the diagnosis with the diagnosis category of the medications. So antidepressants, I would clump with my depressive disorders. And then anti-anxiety medications, I would clump it in with my anxiety disorders. And so that way you're not just mixing and matching and being all over the place. So finding the systematic way that works for you is going to be important. So don't overwhelm yourself when it comes to the recall and content stuff of it, because the questions aren't going to ask you specific stuff within that. So that's where you have to be keeping yourself differentiated between those. So not overwhelming yourself, but not having your foot all the way off the pedal. So that way you're not just stagnant and like stalling out. So that's where you just kind of want to keep yourself in the moment in doing that. So that's what I would recommend to remember, or be able to apply the diagnosis and DSM information to the actual exam questions. Just passed my exam. I am on cloud 9. So tell them a little bit about your experience.
Cloud 9 is, I don't even know what cloud is higher, but that's where I am. And I think that when you failed, that triumph is just a little sweeter, when you finally get there. Thank you. And like that anxiety level, oh my God, because I took it really hard when I didn't pass the first time. I took it really hard when I didn't pass the second time. And then the third time. And I'm like, what the expletive am I doing wrong here? And I finally started to reach out because I was embarrassed and I didn't want to ask for help. And all of my colleagues were passing and I'm getting left behind. People were rooting for me to go into social work, and, they're moving on, and, like, oh my God. So I reached out for help. I found Phil. And I started listening to all of his podcasts and YouTubes. And it helped because, for several reasons. For one, I got the content that I needed. A lot of the content I had not had since I was out of grad school, so I was kind of behind on that. And so listening to it, and then also receiving the lecture notes, I was able to kind of start building a foundation, that had kind of fallen apart. Then there's the anxiety piece of it. And you're like, dear Jesus, why? But I just kind of followed through. I think the last 2 episodes that you had were like the absolute best, because you really said, check your anxiety at the door. You cope by, like, my anxiety was high during the test, but I did a lot of deep breathing. I did a lot of that, changing my mindset and prepping myself a whole week in advance. Like, you can do this. This is your time. You've been putting in the time. You've been studying. You have to believe in yourself. And I trust in God. So I always pray. And I kept doing that over and over. And you know, I stopped worrying. But I mean, it still comes up in the test, because I was on the test like, oh my God, what in the world? It's the way they ask the questions in such a weird way. But I don't know. My mind is still kind of racing, but lots of deep breaths during the test. I stopped for a moment. I closed my eyes, took deep breaths, and said, and repeated, I can do this. I've worked for this. This is my time. I'm going to make it. And I took another deep breath and went back to the question and reprocessed. And I had to do that multiple times to get through the exam. I was familiar with a lot of the words like rationalization, a lot of the recall questions. That helped a lot. I knew more words than I had before, and that made a huge difference. So to recap, it was kind of following through on those study sessions. It was listening to that last podcast, you know, how to attack your exam. I was prepared a whole week in advance. I hope I'm not rambling. I'm sorry. I was prepared a whole week in advance. I got up at 6 a.m., you know, studied for 4 hours straight for the week. And I had my breakfast ready. I had my clothes ready. I knew where I was going to drive to go take the exam. I knew, you know, exactly everything that I had to do step by step. And that also helped with anxiety, you know, things like that. There's so many things I could say. I'm sorry.
So I think, and I've had the pleasure of working with you for a decent amount of time. But more recently, like, we had a tutoring session just before your exam. And I feel like that could be very helpful for you to share that experience of just walk them through that. You're like, Phil, I have been taking summers off and I'm tired of it. And I think I might actually fail this exam attempt and I might not come home. So walk us through the process of, yo, I am 3 days out from my exam. I don't think I can do it. And what switched for you during our tutoring session that made it possible for you to walk in there and kill it?
I mean, never mind the fact that I was killing, like, horribly performing on all the questions. But I think, honestly, it's as simple as I had you to talk to. And I kind of began to calm down a little bit as we talked through it. And yeah, it was 3 summers because, you know, I graduated, I took my test, I didn't pass. So I can only study in the summer. I can't do it during the school year. So summer number 1, there it goes. Summer number 2, there it goes. This is summer number 3. So, you know, having to give up the time was very frustrating. Leaving my kids was frustrating, having to study. I don't know what helped. I think it's just, like I said, talking to you, going over the facts, like looking at the questions again. The acronym, that's one of my favorite things in the world. I still don't think I apply it correctly, but it is the huge basis for helping me understand how to break down the question and how to tackle it. Like, safeties first, feelings next, you know, and then, you know, assessing and referring and all of that. The acronym really helped me understand how to break down the question. So before the exam, I took your advice and I read literally the entire code of ethics. That was a huge help because I really began to see how the ethics apply to the questions. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been seeing those in questions. That's ethics. Okay. It made sense. So I did that before the exam. I also listened to your last podcast on the acronym and the breakdown of the acronym, not podcast, but YouTube. The breakdown of the acronym. And I just kept using that CBT stuff, you know, changing my negative thoughts into positive ones.
And I can't say it enough. Like, you don't have to feel 100% to be able to walk in there and give it 100%. Like, it's not a matter of, am I able to do it, but is what I've done enough in setting aside your own perception of what you're doing and allowing the exam to assess your ability to pass, not your own self.
Exactly. Like, um, there's still so much anxiety because you want it so bad. But I think when you put a consistent study schedule in place and you have a system, I think that was one of the things that caused a big problem for me. I didn't know how to study. I was trying to study. I didn't know what to study. Even after taking the test, you still don't have a grasp on, well, wait, you know what you missed, but where's the outline? So when we're in the study groups with you, we have an outline. Okay, we need to talk about ethics. We need to talk about DSM. We need to talk about this, that, and the other. And that would make more sense to me than reading through all the KSAs. And so that's what I follow. So having a consistent study plan and then having a proper execution plan, as you said, prepare to execute, get those emotions out the way, and then, when the anxiety rising, having a plan to deal with anxiety. Oh my God, just breathe, have your own plan, whatever it takes. And I think that was the most powerful thing. So many people learn in so many different ways, and other study methods would try to push their way onto you. But you just said, hey, you might be auditory, you might be, tactile, whatever it is, you may not need to study for 4 hours straight. You might only need 1 hour. And if that's what works for you, that's what works for you. And I think that was the biggest thing, is beginning to understand myself and what I'm capable of. I can study for 2 hours straight. After 2 hours, I'm done. So, but I don't know. That's it.
And if you could give one piece of advice to somebody that's taking the exam soon, what would you say? Like, if you could give them one piece of motivation.
One piece of motivation. I would say, get your plan set. My plan was fill every Sunday. Get your plan set for how you're going to walk in there. That for that day, what are you going to wear? Have your food. Get that ready. Get your anxiety ready, because that's the hardest part for, I think, most of us. And when you get to a question that it looks really weird, take a deep breath and just use that acronym to kind of break it down, if it's an acronym question. But even I use the acronym just to help me refocus. All right, safety first, feeling second, and then etc. So have a consistent plan for study, have a consistent plan for getting there on that day, have a consistent plan for, tackling your anxiety, and just review.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming back and sharing your experience. It's my pleasure to be able to help and to have you come back and share your experience.
Well, it's my pleasure to give back. I hope it helped. I know I'm kind of all over the place still. Sorry. That's how I am. But I really appreciate your help, and I'm telling everybody about you. So thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And if you need anything, just let me know.
Will do. See you for LISW.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
I'm scheduled to take the exam for the 4th time in October. My anxiety is a blocker. Any tips to assist with that?
Hello?
Yeah, how's it going? How's it going?
Oh my goodness. I'm just so nervous. I don't know what happens. I know the material. I've been, I don't know, as soon as I sit in that chair and get in front of that computer, everything just goes away. So I don't know how to control myself. I know I can pass it, but just my anxiety just gets in my way. Is there anything you can help me with as far as trying to calm myself down?
So walk me through this. Only once you sit down in the exam do you start getting worried?
Yes, my hands sweat, and I was just in there because I've been following you. I've been following you. I'm excited right now because I've finally got a chance to talk with you. But your videos have been very helpful, and I know I could do this, and I know the material. It's just once I sit down in that chair, woo, everything goes away. I get so excited and anxious. That's what it is. It's maybe because I want it so bad, and I'm having peer pressure, and everybody has passed away, not passed pass their exams, and I'm so far behind. And I was just trying to catch up and looking at everybody else just flourishing besides me. And, you know, I'm just so frustrated.
And if you walk me through this, it seems like there's multiple things going on right now. Either you're really wanting to be further ahead in your life, or you're not sure how the exam is going to go. Which one do you think it is?
Well, I'm not sure how the exam is going to go because I mean, I feel so bad about, you know, from my last attempts, and then I'm like, oh God, I'm not sure I'm going to pass it this time. And then I study more, and I do after listening to you, and I get motivated, and then I'm pushing. I think I'm pushing myself too much, and I think you know, I'm just. I don't know. I don't know. I just need to calm down, and I know I could do this, but I don't know. The moment like I said, the moment I sit in that chair, it's a wrap. I just need help with that. I don't know what to do. Oh my goodness. I know I could pass this. I know it because I know the material. And then you've made it easier for me too. You know, you're. I don't know. Whew, I'm just so tired of being disappointed. And I don't know if it's my anxiety or not. Maybe, I don't know. It's nothing. I have a good life. Everything's good. Everybody's rooting for me. Maybe that's the point. Everybody's looking at me I didn't even tell anybody that I'm gonna take this test in October, because once I tell them I got another schedule and please pray for me, and you know, then, yeah, you got this, and then now I think it puts more pressure on me. So I said, well, I'm not gonna do that again. So here I am following you, and it's been helping me a lot, and your motivational speeches have helped me so much. So I've calmed down. It's not as high as it used to be, but it's October will be here before you know it. So I just want just a few help tips, you know.
So it's my pleasure to be able to help. And something that resonated from what you said is, when I'm listening to you, I feel fired up and ready. But once it stops, I'm not sure if I'm able to execute from what you're saying. And
That's
that is where I would recommend identifying something within yourself that can keep yourself motivated and believing that you can do it. Because from your past exam attempts, I'm imagining the first time you took it, you were excited, you were pumped up, everything was good, everyone else hadn't passed their exams yet. And then the second and third time came around, a couple more people had passed their exams, but you're like, I can still do this. I'm able to get it done. People are praying for me. Everyone's rooting for me. And now it's going to be my fourth time. And I don't want to tell people because I don't want them to be rooting for me, because I'm not even rooting for myself anymore.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
So how do we get you to look at yourself and still say, I am competent, capable, and I'm going to walk in and kick its butt? Nothing is going to make me doubt myself, because I'm not sure what this exam attempt is going to look like. I may have taken the exam 3 other times, but this is my absolute first time taking this exam that I'm about to see, because I haven't seen the questions before.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for that. That's good.
And it's my pleasure. And I feel like it's so under talked about, as well as people are nervous. More people than you think are more nervous than they tell you. Like, to be honest, I'm nervous right now. There's a lot of people that could be hearing this, and I know a lot of people like what I have to say. But at the end of the day, I have to tell myself whatever I'm intended to do or what I'm intended to be is going to happen, whether I want it to or not, because when you are your authentic self and fall into what you're supposed to be doing, things work. But it's only once you start trying to tell yourself where you should be or what you should be capable of, do you start robbing yourself of where you should be going and the lessons that you need to obtain in the moment to sustain what you're meant to do in the future.
Gotcha. Wow. What you just said has been very helpful. Oh my goodness. You're right. Oh wow. Yeah. I need to start rooting for myself. Wow. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And it's my pleasure. And this is why I do it, because there are so many people that are suffering right now, but their environments build them up to be these characters that they don't even feel they are. So they're putting on a mask and saying, I'm comfortable and I'm confident and I'm able to do this. But behind closed doors, you're beating yourself up, you're doubting yourself, and you're tearing yourself down. So what they're telling you, you don't even believe, and you're giving them evidence to tell them that you're not, and they're still building you up, and you're questioning why.
Wow. That sounds exactly what I'm experiencing right now. Yeah, that is correct.
And that's where it's not going to be overnight. You're not going to end the session and be like, yo, I'm going to be totally pumped up, I'm going to be beefed up. But giving yourself more freedom to not feel okay in order to feel okay is going to help you.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
And you're in the exact right position that you need to be in to get to where you want to go. So in October, when your fourth attempt comes around, you may not feel 100% comfortable or confident, but giving yourself the grace to try and get to where you need to go is going to be easier than restricting yourself and being like, man, you're already going to fail, or you don't even know what these exam questions are. You haven't been doing well in preparation and all of these things, and building it up. So when you do see questions that you don't know, you're like, oh my God, I knew I wasn't going to be okay and competent in this thing. So let's just fail anyway.
Okay. Wow. That makes a lot of sense.
And if you need anything else, just reach out, like I'm here to help as much as I can, as well as other people are there. But it's you having to humble yourself, if you will, and reach out for the assistance and tell people, I know that you believe that I'm capable of this. I don't believe it myself, but I appreciate you encouraging me to be able to get there because you see things that I don't see.
And I noticed other people they're saying that they needed to hear what you just said, so I don't feel alone. So I appreciate everybody's input on this topic right here. Because I don't feel like alone anymore. That it's normal to feel this way, and it's just that I'm just beating myself up, and I need to just calm down and just do this, because I know I got this. And you made things easier for me to slide in, because this is my fourth attempt, but I have no idea who Phil was until somebody told me, hey, you need to check out Phil. I'm like, Phil? I'm like, okay. So then now things are a lot easier for me. But I'm just thinking about my past attempts, and I said, I don't need to think about those past attempts. Like you said, I'm taking it for the first time, and I got some help this time because I'm a visual learner, and I realized that because I've been studying like, oh my goodness, I'm just overwhelming myself with information, and then I lose it as soon as I sit down in front of the computer. But I realize that I'm a visual learner, and it helps. It's oh man, I thank God for you, Phil. That's all I got to say, and I appreciate all of what you do.
It's my pleasure, and if you need anything, just reach out, and I'm here to help you.
I will. Thank you so much.
Take care of yourself and be safe.
Thanks.
Any tips for someone taking it for their first time in 10 days? I'm not sure what or how to zone it in on the next few days.
Hello.
Yeah, how's it going? How's it going?
Hi. I guess most of my anxiety is stemming from that I graduated May of last year. Kind of life threw me out of one with everything going on, then with COVID, and I've been studying, utilizing time, but I am 10 days away, so I'm really trying to kind of crack down on what I should focus on. I understand ethics is very important, but then I feel like, okay, outside of ethics, like, do I need to know all the medications? Do I need to know like Erickson's? Those are the things I start panicking on what to focus on, because outside of my own anxiety, I don't have control of what's going to be on the test. So that kind of worries me. So kind of having a course, I do have TDC and I'm using it, and it's great for auditory, but not really what to zone in on, like focal key points.
Okay. So this is what I typically recommend for people like a week or so out, if you will. But it can work with 10 days out or even 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks out as well. So what I recommend is for someone to sit down and reflect and say, what areas am I comfortable with or feeling confident in? And based on that, you're going to want to say, which areas am I not comfortable or competent in? So the areas that you're feeling comfortable and competent in, you're going to kind of set to the side a little bit, not all the way to the side, but set them to the side a little bit. And then the areas that you don't feel as comfortable or competent in, peeling those back and saying, what about these do I not feel comfortable or competent in? And how can I get myself to feel more comfortable and competent in them? And if you noticed, nowhere in that phrase did I say memorize, because we're not having you memorize the information. We're having you being comfortable when you see it. How would you be able to identify it and apply it to a question or a specific client situation or scenario?
Yeah, that was my concern, because I've had friends who take it and some are like, there's a lot of like first, next, and best. And I've been using your acronyms. So I'm like, let me not focus on memorizing, but let me focus on like understanding what the question is asking me, what's my setting, who am I providing the service to, and what is being asked of me versus, okay, recall, like what's the answer to this? Try to really focus on what's being asked of me, which has helped. But then of course I second guess myself when I take practice quizzes, and then I get mad at myself, like, you knew this and your anxiety is like tripping you out.
Okay, that's a different discussion. So if I had to say the number one reason why people fail the exam, and I know this based on the fact of what I've worked with people to get through, is second guessing. And I say it's the number one reason why people fail, because second guessing is one of the only things that you can do that will carry throughout the entire exam. So how to stop second guessing yourself is likely more of a focal point than, do I know the information or don't I know the information? Because you just told me, Phil, I know the information, but I'll change my answer, which makes me feel like I don't know the information.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with repetition and practice and meeting yourself where you're at and saying, I may not feel comfortable with the answer I'm picking, but I'm not the answer key. So I just need to do my best and pick what I feel is best for the answer, and then go and pick the result or review the result afterwards. So I have a different philosophy when it comes to answering questions. I do not have people focus on whether they're getting it right or wrong. I have them focus on how they got there to get it right or wrong. And I say how they got there because if you got a question wrong and second guessed yourself when it would have been correct, you did not get that question incorrect. You forced yourself to get that question incorrect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So with you having 10 days left, I would whip out the practice questions you have and go over them, not to see if you get it right or wrong, but push past your doubt of you being able to get the right answer and tell yourself, I'm not second guessing at all, and see how you do on the questions.
Okay.
Because if you're cutting questions up left and right like a samurai and you didn't second guess at all, you almost have to tell yourself, yo, I start second guessing and I pretty much am useless on answering questions because I'm getting questions right, changing them, which makes them get it wrong. So I'm essentially making myself fail.
Okay, yeah, that definitely helped. And I'm going to try to put that forward the next 10 days. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And if anything else comes up, just let me know and we can go from there.
Thanks.
Ways to sustain motivation and attention during the exam.
Okay, so I noticed that literally between questions 55 and like 120, I sort of like completely lose focus. It just feels so overwhelming. I saw like on a Facebook study group, I saw that someone suggested like take a 5-minute break after every 50 questions or something. So that's what I'm thinking of doing. But yeah, that's what's been happening for me.
So let me understand this a little bit. How long before your exam do you have?
4 weeks. Well, yeah, roughly 4 weeks. I take it on August 21st.
Okay. And I only ask that so that way I know how much leeway of practice you have. Now, if you're like, fill my exams in 3 days, we have a little bit different real estate to work with. But you have a month to practice. So I would not base the recommendation off of what everyone else has said. It's good that they provided you like a framework, but as when you're working with a client, you need to meet them where they're at and make it focused on their needs. So I would sit down and let's say you have 100 questions, for example. Go through those and say, how many of these questions can I go through before I lose it? Because you told me question 55 to 120, I lost it. So it may not be question 50. It may be question 55 that you need to take like a mental break or a physical break because they're very different. Physical break means that you get outside of the room. Mental break is you still stay in the room, but like maybe close your eyes, do progressive muscle relaxation, do deep breathing, etc. So that way you don't take as much time to get up and have to check back in because your time doesn't stop. So I think with that month left, I would say just keep going through questions and say, what makes me feel distracted? Is it that mental drain, or is it that I don't feel like I'm answering the questions correct, or finding the root of where that is going?
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Because a lot of times, and this is where it's kind of a segue, but very, very similar to this, is the length of time somebody is supposed to be studying. And I know supposed to be is kind of like an expectation, but people often focus on the amount of time that they're putting in. So like I'm studying an hour every day or 2 hours or 3 hours. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But that is where you have to sit yourself down and say, how much time can I actually study and retain the information or gain something from it? Which is vastly different than the amount of time people put in.
Okay. Yeah, that
So
makes
similar
sense.
to how many questions am I able to go through and not get exhausted or feel mentally drained or get distracted or start guessing or rushing. Same thing with the other areas of your prep. How long am I able to study or stay focused in that area? And am I quote unquote wasting time because I'm not gaining things?
Yeah. Thank you. That's actually really helpful.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be able to help. Do you have any other considerations that you're struggling with?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you need anything else, just reach out.
Will do.
Can you explain the acronym you use and why? Okay, so for those that don't know, I do the SFARFI, so safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene. Why do I use this one? Because it's a very useful tool on how to navigate the answering process. And if you notice, I said a tool and not a law, because a lot of times people are like, Phil, I tried applying this thing. It didn't apply to every question. It must be useless. It's not for every question. So the acronym is not useful for everybody. So that's where you have to sit yourself down and say, does it make sense to me? And if not, how can I make it make sense? Or if I don't have any interest in making it make sense, then I'm not going to utilize it anyway. So why do I recommend people utilize it? Because there are people that have personalities that like and enjoy structure. So that's where we're not going to like rush people in the process of, okay, you just walk into the exam, you break it down and apply what everyone else does. So the acronym is like a systematic way of, for example, are there any safety concerns? Is anyone abusing anyone? Is anyone neglecting anyone? Is anyone a risk to themselves or other people? Feelings is getting the client's direct experience with and for that situation to help guide the process. And then the assess is gathering that clinical data and understanding what people are looking at in the situation. Of course, it's not going to be relevant for everybody. And I say it's a tool because it's not going to be systematic and useful for every single situation. And that's where you have to understand. If I don't understand it, figuring out, is it because I don't understand each level? Is it because I'm like rushing and not really knowing the framework of where it's coming from? But again, I don't recommend it for everybody. And I do have a video on YouTube of should I utilize the acronyms or not? And I blatantly say like, yo, it's not for everybody, and that's okay because you have to find what works best for you and go from there. So that's what I would say about the acronym of, is it very helpful for people? Yes. Is it very unhelpful for other people? Yes. Is it a 100% pass shot? Absolutely not. It has helped people pass the exam, but it's not like the law of like, you need to do it because it works for everybody. Because as social workers, we know that everything has to be individualized with and for the person's situation for them to get to the best possible result for them. So reflecting on your process and saying, is this going to be helpful for me, or is this not going to be as helpful as another approach? Words of motivation would be nice too. I find myself flipping through highly anxious to overly calm. It doesn't help in my job, paying for my exam, and I feel that there's a lot riding on it. Everyone believes I can pass. I'm just like, sorry, I felt like I needed to say all that.
My test is on Tuesday, and I've been flip-flopping so much lately. I've been entering some, just doing some self-care recently, and I gave myself a deadline to Sunday to just stop, put everything down. But my job paid for my exam because my CEO and the COO have a lot of faith in me, and that was really great when I got the approval. But now I'm like, holy crap, like my CEO and my COO are like looking at me to pass this exam because I'm the first person they have ever had paid for. So I'm like, okay, this is a lot. And everyone has all this confidence in me, and I have the confidence, but it's like, it's there and then it goes away. And I don't know, I've been in really tough situations before. I'm a single mom who did my master's program. I've had everyone go against me, and even my academic advisor said you couldn't do it. And I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna shut you up and I'm gonna do it. And I nearly graduated with a perfect GPA. So I know I can prove my self-worth, and I know I can prove other people wrong. But it's like, this exam, I can write papers all day. You tell me to write a paper to get my LCSW, got you, no problem. Tests are a lot.
And I think there has to be a switch that you have to flip in between now and your exam of disconnecting your worth and identity from it.
Yeah.
Because something that you said is, I've put my identity and self-worth, and I'm proving people wrong, and I'm doing all these things to prove who I am and that I'm worthy to be in the spot. But this exam has done nothing to say that you're not worthy.
True.
And that's where coming from a place of vengeance works. Because trust me, if you know my story, I didn't come from the best area. I didn't come from the well off. I don't have the best educational process. But at the end of the day, I had to set that aside and say, your potential has nothing to do with standardized test or what you do. It's who you are while doing that is going to define what type of social worker and person you're going to be in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely love my work, and I know it's my calling. I was pre-law like my whole life, and I took one social work class, and I'm like, oh, I'm wrong. I need to do this. So I know I love everything, and one of my other struggles is I don't want this test to define my ability as a social worker. And I've been kind of reminding myself that, like, just if you pass or you fail this test, that doesn't mean you're any worse or any, better. So it doesn't make you a bad therapist. It doesn't make you a bad social worker. Your clients are still going to appreciate you either way. So it's trying to remind myself, it's just, even coming into here, my heart started racing because I'm like, oh my God, this is a thing. It's a thing. And I found your videos so late and I was so upset. And I'm like, no, I found them like 2 days ago. And the instant that I saw the acronym, everything like clicked. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like, it made so much sense. And I'm trying to just manage all of that and just go in, do it, and accept what happens. But it's easier said than done.
And I think the added pressure that you're kind of like putting on the back burner, but that is adding a lot, is no one's telling you that you can't right now. They're all telling you that you can, and it'd be easier if people were doubting you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Because I hit it down because I'm not used to people being behind me and saying, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. I've heard so much, you're a single parent, you're working and taking care of a kid, and you're going to school and you're doing this. How can you do that? That's impossible. Or how dare you think you can go take an exam 3 years after you pass or after you graduated or whatever. And I'm so used to hearing those negative thoughts and negative things from people, that hearing a lot of people say, you can do this, is like, oh, I can? This is a little overwhelming.
And know that no one's putting pressure on you, though.
Yeah.
Like, you are setting the precedence of, I need to do this to prove everyone right that is looking at me. And if I failed this exam, I'm letting everyone down.
Yeah. Oy. And I know I can just retake it if I need it to, but it's a lot. That's why I left Monday to be just a complete self-care day, to just try to take my mind off of everything and go in fresh Tuesday.
And I think my biggest recommendation for you is to sit down and say, what would I expect people to say about me? And why are they saying good things about me? Because I'm more capable of things than I know. Because if I'm the first person at my agency that they paid for, they see great potential in me. And if it's about them paying for my exam, I can, in my mind, have money set aside to pay them for the exam, because I don't need to owe anyone anything.
Yeah, that does help. That helps a lot. Thank you. It's like everyone says, it's overwhelming, anxiety, all of that, and all the intrusive thoughts like to pop up in the most not convenient times.
And the thing you said, though, is there are times where it's calm, and that's your true authentic self looking through and saying, yo, we can do this. We've been through more. We've been able to handle more, and we've been able to get everything done. So why am I going to let a punk test punk me out? Why am I going to let 170 question exam take everything from me? Because I've had to be so self-sufficient throughout my entire journey. So why am I going to let a 170 question test? And the main thing why I'm letting this do this is because it's taken control out of my situation where I fought so much to get control. But I have the control because I get to dictate whether I pass or fail. And my approach on these questions is going to get me there. And I've been doing all the right things to get there.
Wow. Yep, that's it right there. Awesome. Well, thank you. I don't want to take up too much time, but thank you so much. That was all super helpful.
Yeah, and it's my pleasure. And if you need anything, let me know. But know that you're more capable of things than you know. And I know it's easier when people are doubting you because they're telling you what you need to do to get worthiness. But once you flip that switch of what do I see myself doing, do you actually start accomplishing sustainable goals and getting confidence in your ability? So regardless of what people say, it's like, I don't need to prove you wrong because I didn't already know I'm in the right place.
Wow. Yeah. And I know I am, because this is my dream job, dream population, and it's all just there. This is just an added benefit for me. Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.